Are you ready to join the Federation and become a citizen? If the answer is yes, then Starship Troopers is the movie for you. Released in 1997 and directed by Paul Verhoeven, Starship Troopers is an action-packed science fiction war movie which follows high school teenagers from Buenos Aires in the 23rd century, whom graduate from high school and join the military in order to take part in a brutal war against a planet of vicious alien bugs, whom are attacking Earth by hurling asteroids at the planet. Main protagonist Johnny Rico becomes a prominent soldier in an elite command known as the Roughnecks, where the movie holds no bars with its epically brutal and often violent action in this fun movie, which is one part space war movie and one part satirical look at military propaganda. So today we are looking into 10 things that you didn't know about Starship Troopers, a movie which often gets called Star Wars of the 90s, but in reality it's more like James Cameron's Aliens of the 90s. So sit back as we check this out. Would you like to know more? Well, if so, then stick around. Number 10. Its origins are from the printed page. Starship Troopers is based on a book, published in 1959 and written by American author Robert A. Heinlein. The science fiction story about a futuristic military fleet duking it out with an alien species known as arachnids first made its way as a two-part story in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, to which it then became its own novel, with a few tweaks made to the story to make it more of an adult book. The story of Starship Troopers itself was a reaction to America's new modern age of nuclear testing, which took place during the 1950s. The book was quite controversial for its time, for its depiction of the military and fascism. However, a frequent critique made about the book is that it appears to be a juvenile story, but secretly it isn't really. Kind of like the movie when you think about it. The book would even go on to win a Hugo Award for Best Novel in 1960. Number 9. The movie's original title. The Starship Troopers movie script was written by American filmmaker Edward Neumeier, who also co-wrote RoboCop, and his original script was actually called Bug Hunt at Outpost 9. Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue, right? Now I know what you're all thinking. If it's based on Starship Troopers, then why wasn't it originally called Starship Troopers? Well, here's the thing. Originally, it wasn't based on Starship Troopers. Neumeier claimed that his inspiration for writing the script was, quote, to see Sandra Dee and Troy Donahue go into outer space and fight bugs and become Nazis, end quote. When it was pointed out that the script for Bug Hunt at Outpost 9 was very similar to the Starship Troopers novel, the movie's production then bought the rights to the book and changed the characters' names and situations to reflect the book. And thus Bug Hunt at Outpost 9 became a Starship Troopers movie adaptation. Number 8. Paul Verhoeven wasn't a fan of the book. Given that the scriptwriter for Starship Troopers was one of the writers of RoboCop, it would seem a given that the movie's director Paul Verhoeven should come on board to direct Starship Troopers. However, since RoboCop, the Dutch director had become a big-time Hollywood director, directing other big movies such as Total Recall, Basic Instinct, and Showgirls. However, although Starship Troopers may have been right up the director's alley, he actually didn't enjoy reading the book. In fact, he only read 2 chapters of it, finding it to be boring and depressing, and in order to get an understanding of the story he was about to direct, he had to have the story explained to him. Number 7. Potential director and cast. Before Paul Verhoeven took to the director's chair, James Cameron at one stage was attached to directing, but probably left to direct Titanic instead. Mark Wahlberg was the frontliner to play main lead of Johnny Rico, but he didn't get the part. James Marsden and Jason Priestley were also considered. Keanu Reeves was offered the part but turned it down to star in The Devil's Advocate instead. It was Casper Van Dien who landed the main role of Rico. Neve Campbell was the first choice to play Carmen, but couldn't commit as she was filming Scream 2 at that time. so the part was given to Denise Richards. Having worked with Verhoeven on Basic Instinct, Michael Douglas was offered the part of Mr. Rachchak, but it was Michael Ironside who landed the role, who also previously worked with Verhoeven on Total Recall. Number 6. Filming locations. Scenes of the troopers on a bug planet were in fact filmed at a scrap called Hell's Half Acre at Notrota County, Wyoming, on the account that the scenery could look like an alien desert landscape. However, filming in the heat did cause some issues, as actor Jake Busey, who played Ace, suffered heat stroke while filming on location, which was so severe filming came to a halt for a week. In fact, many of the cast and crew had issues with heat stroke while filming, to which up to 25 people per day had to be treated for heat stroke. To try and accommodate for this, tiny holes were cut into the troopers' uniforms to allow air to get in and cool down the actors. Number 5. Bringing the bugs to life. The arachnid bugs seen in Starship Troopers were mainly made up of CGI, but in order to get the actors to perform as if they were face to face with the monstrous bugs, strange stand-ins for the bugs were used, such as brooms and poles, and on many occasions director Verhoeven himself would stand in for the bugs, and would be jumping around pretending to attack the actors while screaming, "I am a big bug and I'll kill you," in order to get the right reactions. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some models of the bugs that were used on the set, but having Verhoeven running around like a madman is much more interesting. But never mind that, I want to see an early cut of the movie where the mobile infantry are doing battle against brooms. Number 4. Sequels and spin-offs. In 1999, a computer-animated spin-off TV series based on Starship Troopers came out, called Roughnecks: Starship Troopers Chronicles. The show was distributed by BKN Kids Network, and only consisted of one season. Despite having an appreciated fan base now, the show never really took off at the time. I can remember it being shown on pay TV in Australia in the year 2000, but no one was really talking about it. In 2004, Starship Troopers got a straight-to-video sequel called Starship Troopers 2: Hero of the Federation, and it wasn't met well with fans. My biggest gripe with the sequel is that it feels dull and deviates from the first movie, taking more of an invasion of the body snatchers and John Carpenter's The Thing approach, as opposed to the original, which was more of an action movie. However, in 2008, another direct-to-video sequel came out with Starship Troopers 3, which feels much more like a direct sequel to the first one, and even sees Casper Van Dien return as Rico. I freaking love this movie, and regard it as an underrated classic. Yeah, the movie looks cheaper than the original, but all the intellectual satire from the first movie is perfectly on cue, and it successfully recaptured the feel of the first movie. It's just a shame that it couldn't have had a cinematic release and bigger budget, but all fans of the original Starship Troopers should definitely check this one out. Since then, there have been 2 Japanese computer-animated sequels, with Starship Troopers Invasion in 2012 and Starship Troopers Traitors of Mars in 2017. Number 3. Recycled props. It's not uncommon for props from one movie or TV show to be passed on to another as a way of saving costs. Case in point, the hairbrush transmitter gadget used in the James Bond movie Live and Let Die would go on to be reused in the Doctor Who serial Revenge of the Cybermen, and the clown masks from Killer Clowns from Outer Space would be reused as troll masks for Ernest Scared Stupid. Well, Starship Troopers is no exception, as the helmets worn by the mobile infantry in the film would then get recycled and used in Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes remake. Yep, one lick of paint later and the helmets would be used for another science fiction picture. Only Planet of the Apes 2001, yeah, it wasn't all that good, was it? Number 2. Reception. Starship Troopers was released on November 7th, 1997, and not only did it have the misfortune of going against fellow alien monster movie, Alien Resurrection, but it also went up against James Cameron's impossibly popular Titanic, which was just devouring the box office at that time. Starship Troopers made a lackluster $121 million on a $105 million budget, and was ripped apart by critics. To be honest though, I don't think the critics quite knew what to think of it. Like the book before it, it was an insightful satire disguised as a bit of dumb popcorn entertainment. I guess the critics just hadn't caught on yet. The film did, however, receive an Academy Award nomination for Best Special Effects. And in modern years, Starship Troopers has a huge fan base who really appreciate the movie for its themes that it explores and confronts the viewers with. Now, I know I'm not the first person to say this, but the best way to sum up Starship Troopers is that it's an intellectual movie disguised as a dumb one. Number 1. Cuts and changes made to the movie. Out of fear of being given an NC-17 rating, a brief decapitation scene had to be cut from the movie. However, the test screening brought on more interesting cuts to the film. Originally in Starship Troopers, we see the Carmen character fall out of love with Rico, where she joins the Federation only to then fall in love with the Xander character. However, the original cut had more of a subplot about Carmen feeling stuck being in love with both men. Test audiences felt that that was wrong, depicting a woman being in love with two men, for some reason. So some tinkering was required to show the character fall out of love with Rico but then in love with Xander afterwards, along with removing an end scene where Rico and Carmen share a kiss. Test audiences also felt that Carmen should have died instead of the Dizzy character. Despite the fact that Dizzy is a much more likeable character, the test audiences didn't get their way with that one, as Dizzy's death and Carmen's survival was left intact as planned. Conclusion. Not too long ago, I saw a meme that said part of growing up is understanding why Rico should have chosen Dizzy over Carmen. And yeah, this is true. Rico totally should have devoted more time and affection to Dizzy, as she was the better character, for Rico at least. However, this meme is kind of reflective on Starship Troopers itself, as I have found that it is a movie that changes as you get older, or at least your perception changes. When it first came out when I was just a kid, I just saw it as a kick-ass, action-packed alien war movie with plenty of appetizing set pieces and full of popcorn bangs and crashes, bound to give any young person a heap of cinematic joy. But as I've gotten older and wiser, I do really appreciate the movie's satire on fascism and military propaganda. And despite Starship Troopers going on to be a cult classic, when it first came out, it did face criticism and scrutiny, as many saw it as actually being pro-fascism and pro-war. But Paul Verhoeven himself has rejected this and claimed that the movie is actually a satire on these themes. In other words, making fun of them. So it's actually anti all these controversies it was accused of being. In fact, in the movie's early days of production, there was hesitation and resistance to even getting Starship Troopers made due to these themes. It went into production all the way back in 1991. In fact, there was some early test footage of the bugs by special effects wizard Phil Tippett that was put together as early as 1993, 4 years before the movie's eventual release. And it was only really when Verhoeven himself made further test footage that the ball really got moving. At first, Starship Troopers was intended to be a big budget summer blockbuster, but it then had its budget pulled back, once again over concerns of the movie's themes. So this is a dark cloud that has always been hanging over Starship Troopers, as it seems that no one got the joke or realized that the whole thing was actually poking fun at propaganda. In fact, the movie was ahead of its time, as it frequently shows a sort of social media platform that subjects the population with its propaganda. Not too far off from the world we currently live in when you think about it. I think Starship Troopers is now more than ever a relevant movie, and a movie that we probably could learn a thing or two about. But above all, it's a comedy. It's just, once again, back then no one got the joke. So if you find yourself watching Starship Troopers, just don't take the movie literally, which really is the point. So remember, the movie is there to be laughed at, enjoyed, and poses questions as to how susceptible we are to propaganda. Just don't let Starship Troopers bug you too much. So that was my look into Starship Troopers, a movie that keeps getting popular with time, suggesting that clearly it was way ahead of its 1997 release. It's a pretty rockin', badass science fiction movie. And well, let's be honest, who doesn't love badass, rocking science fiction movies? There is plenty to enjoy, so it's time to give it another viewing. Anyway, I'm Minty, and seriously, that cut of the movie where they're doing battle with broomsticks, please, someone release that. See ya!